It's a plane.
And that, as much as anything else, led to my drinking problem.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Workman, and I am the man of constant hatred.
And I'm Manny Classic, and this is Drinking Age Movies, a review show where we review movies from 21 years ago.
And this week we're saying happy 21st birthday to a film that makes you nostalgic for Johnny Depp's long-dead acting ability. That's right, we're watching Donnie Brasco.
When I introduce you, I'm gonna say, this is a friend of mine. That means you're a connected guy. Now, if I said instead, this is a friend of ours, that would mean you were a made guy. Capiche?
When Lefty brought Donnie into his world,
Who's this guy? This Donnie, a friend of mine.
he took a risk on a kid he hardly knew.
I'm gonna have to school you, my friend.
School me in what?
Alright, Donnie Brasco was released February 28th, 1997, directed by Mike Newell, written by, in its book form, Joseph Pistone, who was Donnie Brasco, and Richard Woodley, and the adaptation for the screenplay was by Paul Atencio. Opening weekend was $11.8 million, and it grossed $42 million on an estimated $35 million budget.
Donnie Brasco is about an undercover FBI agent played by Johnny Depp who is tasked to infiltrate a New York crime family. 21 years later, let's talk impact.
So, the movie, I think, comes from a long kind of storied history of mob-type movies, so I don't think much changed in the way that those are presented with maybe a few exceptions. Just off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the Departed.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe above and beyond, but there's no real change in the way that these movies have been presented in terms of like story and everything like that. But the actors' careers, all of them that play key roles in this movie, I think their careers kept going and things like that.
Yeah. I had read somewhere that this was what Johnny Depp referred to as like his first adult role, where he'd done things like Edward Scissorhands and Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man and things like that beforehand. So he's real kind of indie, or he played teenagers or people pretending to be teenagers. So this was like his first adult role. So this was like where kind of his later career skyrocketed from.
Which I think is really great given the fact that apparently he got this role for being a teenager. He got this role specifically because the director was impressed when he trashed that hotel room in 1994.
Right.
He was reviving what was once a well-established rock tradition, but he's just an amateur.
Right.
So, like, the fact that pretty much he was just a petulant child got him an adult role,
Yeah,
I think is phenomenal.
Just a little bit of irony for you. Yeah, I think a little bit of the impact that this film had specifically was that it kind of changed the public perception of like the gangster vernacular, as to where, you know, some things had been, or the speech pattern was kind of there. This kind of introduced everyone to the term "forget about it."
Forget about it.
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 Which is said 28 times in this film.
Yeah, and it said wow, just 28?
Just 28.
That's real shocking considering there's an entire scene that
Right.
revolves around the word.
Well, as a phrase, 28 times.
Wow.
185 F-bombs, though.
There you go. So then you get something like Mickey Blue Eyes starring Hugh Grant, where they have also an entire scene that revolves around the phrase "forget about it."
Hey, forget about it.
Hey, forget about it.
Forget about it. Forget no R's.
Forget about it.
All right, now change the T's to D's.
Hey, forget about it.
Id?
Well, you said change the T's to the D's, for
Not
Christ's
the
sake.
last one.
Well, all right, change the T's to the D's, but not the last
Wait,
one.
forget about
Forget
it.
about it.
Stop.
Then I also feel there just as kind of a small impact, and because I'm a big fan of the Wu-Tang Clan. Method Man had a skit on his Tikal 2000 album where the entire skit is just them saying different pseudonyms for Method Man. And one of those pseudonyms is Donnie Brasco.
A.K.A. Donnie Brasco! A.K.A. Donnie Most! A.K.A. Donnie Osmond!
And it's also meant to kind of parody the scene where they're typing up Lefty Ruggiero's aliases over and over, and it's like AKA Lefty, AKA Lefty Guns, AKA this, AKA that, and I'll probably play that clip right now. So just minimal impact, but there's still some impact that's felt throughout it. I think I took one more note on something I felt like it impacted.
Was it the word fugazi? Because that's an impact.
Is you should give it to somebody that don't know any better, because that's a fugazi. All right?
That's a fugazi? How do you know it's a fugazi? You looked at it for 2 seconds.
Well, it's a fake.
Yeah, I know what a fugazi is.
I was going to say, I feel like, you had Goodfellas in 1990, you had this in 1997. I feel like this kind of reignited what Goodfellas started in the 90s, and we ended up getting like Analyze This and Analyze That, and The Sopranos, because this came out 2 years before first Analyze This and The Sopranos. So.
That's right.
So I feel like that had a little something to do with it, because this was a pretty modest hit and became a little more of a cult classic because of just how good of a film it really is. So how do we like this movie in general?
I have fond memories of this movie. My dad was always like the type of guy to watch westerns and mafia movies and stuff like that. So this is one of the first movies I remember us kind of watching together that was more kind of adult theme, because I was like 13 at the time, stuff like that. So I remember it fondly, and actually just rewatching this in order to do this review. Just good memories. It's there's really great parts of the film. For as much as I said in the last section that it's kind of just a generic kind of mob movie, it has really great things going for it. That every time I watch it, I'm very excited to watch it.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good things going on with this movie, and I'd like to start with the performances, because, as we said, this is Johnny Depp's first adult role, as he considered, and he's phenomenal in it. He is just everywhere with it. His range is just out of control in this film. He has such a good command of his art, something that this is one of the films that really kind of made me a Johnny Depp fan. It was kind of this and Fear and Loathing, which I really hope to watch next year. And it's some of his stuff with Tim Burton, his earlier stuff like Ed Wood. Just, he's so good in this film.
Yeah. It's really interesting watching him play what are essentially two separate characters, as Donnie Brasco and then the actual agent himself, Joseph Pistone, and watching about 3/4 way through the movie, these two characters merging together and him kind of going unhinged as to what parts of each persona he should be at all times, around his family, around the mob, around FBI agents and things like that. It becomes almost this psychedelic kind of thing within his own head, where you're watching this man collapse from all sides, trying to pillar himself up in front of everyone and everything that he knows.
Yeah, there's a couple of real good scenes, like they're down in Florida in an airport trying to get back to New York, and a DA comes walking through and calls him out by his actual name while he's standing with the mob, and in order to keep his cover, he just punches this man in the face and then claims that he groped him, and it's one of those, how far is he willing to go as he comes more and more unhinged. I'm going to be honest, people, I'm not a big Al Pacino fan. After about 77 or so, he just kind of comes a little unhinged and just gives really kind of ridiculous performances and things. but he's in rare performance mode in this film, and he is fantastic.
Yeah. You always get that ridiculous, like, Al Pacino, like, hoo-ha type thing, like...
Yeah.
Hoo-ha! And he is subtle in parts that require it, but for the most part, he's giving a very large performance as a very defeated man.
Yes. His kind of unhingedness works for the role because it seems to be a lot more posturing than anything else. So he really just gives an earnest performance in this. And there's a scene where they've just killed a bunch of rivals in a basement and killed a man that they just supposed was a rat. They didn't have any proof. They just kill him. And you can see just the hurt and the defeat on his face as they're driving away from it. And it's a rather beautiful scene, and it's just bathed in this beautiful red. Just great symbolism there too.
You also get some great performances from Anne Heche, who doesn't get a lot of screen time, but I feel like she maximizes her minutes every time she's on screen.
Yeah, playing kind of the Johnny. So she's playing Johnny Depp's wife. She kind of feels a little Lorraine Bracco in Goodfellas, and she takes just about every scene she's in. She just steals it. She's fantastic in this movie. You also get a couple of really good bit parts from Paul Giamatti and Tim Blake Nelson playing a couple of FBI agents who are wonderful.
Yeah, they get one particular scene where they're kind of just the aforementioned "forget about it" scene, where they're attempting to figure out what the phrase means, and it's kind of this emotional moments for these two characters trying to understand what it's like to be that deep undercover, and clearly not actually getting it by the end,
right?
Like even with the term means and things like that. But they get a really great just kind of. It's almost like when you're eating, you get that palate cleanser between the meals, between your courses. That's exactly what that scene is. It goes from anxiety to this really kind of just calm down scene with them kind of emotionally, mentally getting into what's going on before you get back into action. I think it's a good spot in the movie for it, too.
It is real nice because the movie has a lot of tension, because especially getting towards the later parts, you start to feel that everything's going to unravel for Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, as he gets deeper and deeper in and is setting up deals with other FBI informants. It becomes really tense, and you just kind of sit on the edge of your seat. So you just get this little breather, the nice scene between three characters, just a wonderful respite.
Speaking of tension, can we talk about this score, which just is just right underneath everything?
Yeah. There's moments where it just kind of puts you on edge.
I really don't think that's the same boat.
That's the same boat. It's got the name on the left hand. It's like my name. That's that Abscam boat.
And really gives you most of the sense of danger, because there'll be moments where you kind of forget that he's the FBI agent, because as you said, he starts to blend his character so well. You kind of just forget it for a moment, and then the score kicks back in when he's in like a minimal amount of danger. It's like, oh no, is he going to be found out? Because that's a great score.
Yeah, especially given the fact that there are so many movies dealing with the mob where they just hit you over the head with, Frank Sinatra and Rat Pack and Vegas-style stuff, almost the same way that we got with Vegas Vacation
which is on the channel right now, and you can go watch it.
Instead, this score just lies underneath the movie, ramping up exactly what they want you to feel through each and every scene.
Right. They do a wonderful job, and a lot of the song selection's real nice because they don't do too much with the song selection. It's just kind of like, hey, this is what year it is, so here's the song that would have been playing on the radio at that time. So it just kind of clues you into where you are and when you are. So it's a good song selection. So you're not having to listen to Sinatra and Dean Martin over and over again.
Yeah, and a lot of times that you're getting non-orchestral music is they're driving in a car, so you hear that they're in kind of their mafia-style safe house, which is pretty much at a bar, so like it's playing in the background of the bar. It's never something where they're just ramming music over the top of the scene for no reason.
Right.
Like, even in the context of the film, it makes sense as to why these songs are playing.
And it's a beautiful film to look at too. It's shot so well. The color palette is beautiful. They picked color palettes to let you know when you were in certain boroughs. Mm-hmm. It's just a really easy film to look at, and I don't know I can say much more than that. It's just a beautiful film.
Yeah. Back to the whole color things, when you're in like Manhattan, New York proper, you get a lot of blues and things like that. Brooklyn is more brown. Mm-hmm. There's part of the film where they end up going to Florida, where you get those bright, vibrant, almost Miami Vice pinks, oranges,
right,
things like that, to really rein you into not only kind of where you are, but the sensibilities of the time, because Donnie Brasco, the real Joseph Pistone, this was during the 70s. He released the book in the 80s, then the movie was shot in the 90s, so you get that 20-year look back as to what was going on at the time. So
yeah, and the costuming department does a fantastic job going between New York and Miami. So you get them in New York and in the suits and the big collars and whatnot, and you get them in Miami and they're in like Hawaiian shirts and trunks and they look real laid back. It's just a fantastic job by the costuming department.
Yeah, you get this. There's a great scene where they're kind of walking through this club they've invested in, and there's like they're clearly mafioso with their very proper suits and everything like that, but all the patrons are wearing loose-fitting clothes / disco clothes that you associate
mm-hmm.
with the 70s and things like that.
Right.
So you get this just beautiful.
Yeah. This film's really easy on the eyes.
Yeah.
Mike Newell did a fantastic job, but never thought he wouldn't. I mean, he turns in great films time after time.
It got 2 Oscar noms?
I got 1 Oscar nom.
1 Oscar nom.
It got an Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Okay.
Which, looking at some of the other films that we'll be looking at later this year, I'm not too sad about, because, I mean, this is a really good film.
Mm-hmm.
But, as you said, I realize it's based on a true story, but a lot of times it does feel like it goes through a lot of emotions.
Based on a true story.
Based on a true story, yeah. Because you can throw that up on the front of anything. It just, it doesn't have to be 100% true. It's based on a true story.
That's right.
It kind of goes through some of the motions where you can tell some of the things are dramatized for the film. And then you start reading into the story where it was dramatized for the film. But it's a good film. It's a real good screenplay. It's sharp. It's witty. There's some good laugh moments. There's some good tension, which it's a finely written film.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that it should have been nominated for anything higher, like Best Picture or Best Director, again, maybe a cinematography nod, because it is a gorgeous film. Would have been nice, but again, when we get into later films this year, you'll understand kind of where I sit in 97, because there are far better films in 97, just looking at the Oscar nominations, that it really doesn't break my heart that it wasn't nominated for more.
I think it is the standout film through the beginning of the year, though. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Between this and Lost Highway, which we reviewed last week, you finally start getting out of that beginning of the year kind of real awful dump, and you start getting some quality films.
Right.
And it is what I believe, Head and Shoulders, probably the best movie in the first quarter of the year.
I don't know if I would go so far as the best, but it definitely does bring you up out of the beginning of February and all through January. It's definitely a much better film than we haven't been watching, and some of the films we haven't watched.
That's right.
It's good. It's a really good film, and I'm happy to have been able to rewatch it for the channel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful film, well acted, well shot, well written, well directed. Overall, a good film, but at moments it does feel like it really goes through the motions. So, I'm saying based on our scale, I'm giving it a damn great.
It is everything Paul just said. It is well acted. It is beautiful to look at. The score is really great underneath it. So I am also going to go damn great.
So what did you think of Donnie Brasco? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did it make you want to go undercover for a bit? Let us know in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like, there's a bell notification down at the bottom which will let you know when we release new videos.
And as always, have a damn fine day.
It's another plane.